professional since graduating with a BS in marketing and from Missouri State University in Springfield, Missouri. Her varied experience includes both client and vendor-based teams, business ownership, product and market development initiatives, and numerous community leadership and advocacy roles. In the Branson area, Ann is most often credited with leading the successful passage of a regional tax, creating more than $10 million for tourism marketing annually, and the reinvigoration of the Ozark Mountain Christmas season, which we heard about yesterday. November 1st, we heard it turns into Christmas. So congratulations on doing that for this destination and development. And we'd love you to come up and introduce the panel. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. And I have an order for you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm McDowell, and I helped assemble the panel that you'll hear from this morning. I know you've been in Branson a few days. I've heard many of you, it's your first visit to Branson. Welcome from all of us. I hope you felt that welcome as you've been in our community for the last couple of days. And you've probably heard as well that Branson is has a population of about 13,000, give or take, and that we welcome about 10 million visitors each year. It's natural, and I'm sure you've probably asked yourself, why on earth Branson? And how did this come to be? And why here in this sort of remote area of southwest Missouri that's a lot of rocks and a lot of hills and other things that I know you've experienced and seen in the last couple of days. So we wanted to not just have one person come up here and explain how tourism began in Branson, but we wanted to bring you a group of folks that each have their own specialty and each have a unique perspective on Branson and on our history. So this group is a group of historians, entertainers, advocates, and they're going to take you all the way back to pre-tourism in Branson all the way up till today. Because while we gained some notoriety in the early 90s when a little show called 60 Minutes came to Branson, overnight successes are not really overnight successes, as I'm sure you all know. Steve Jobs once said, overnight success stories take a very long time. And that's really the story of Branson that we're going to share with you this morning. So I have with me Mr. Jim Babcock. He will talk to you about Branson before tourism even began here. He is the co-curator with his wife Jean of the Branson Centennial Museum, just about 2 blocks to the north. John Fullerton is with us this morning to talk about the really early beginnings of tourism in Branson, what those first visitors came for and why, and what they experienced when they were here in this area. Steve Willoughby is with us to talk about the Branson boom, which we typically talk about in the early 90s before the internet. So that 60 Minutes, our fame on 60 Minutes had a tremendous impact in the region, and Steve had a front row seat for it. And then Lynn Berry, with our Branson Chamber of Commerce and CVB, is our communications director, and she's going to bring the history right up to today for you. So we'll each speak for just a few minutes, and we'll have some time for questions at the end. So let me introduce to you Mr. Jim Babcock, who is our knowledgeable and beloved director with his wife Jean of the Branson Centennial Museum.
Thank you, Ann, for that highly flattering introduction. I want to welcome you to historic downtown Branson, where it all began. And a few notes about Branson I'm going to leave with you. The Ozark Mountains, sited in Branson, Missouri, and Taney County, are the oldest mountains in the continental United States. Sparsely settled in 1818 when Henry Rose Schoolcraft, a metallurgist who was looking for lead deposits, ascended the White River and traveled through Taney County almost to the site of Springfield, published his journal, the first published account of the Ozarks. Into this largely unsettled territory Calvin Gaylor, age 15, and his bride of a year, Cassandra, age 14, and a month-old child, arrived on the White River front in the area we now know as Branson. Calvin became a gunsmith and avoided connection with either side in the Civil War. The land for the cemetery in downtown Branson was a gift of widow Cassandra. By the 1860s, a dozen or more families had settled nearby. Reuben Spaulding Branson had a mercantile business on the Harrison, Arkansas, and Springfield, Missouri freighting road in the eastern part of the county in 1881. The next year, he and his family moved the business and post office commission near Rourke Creek and the White River. Often, the community in the 19th century took the name of the postmaster, thus Branson, Missouri. In 1886, he sold his business and post office commission and moved to the county seat, where he began holding various county offices. The name of the post office for a brief time was Lucia, a community platted adjacent to the Branson Land Company holdings. Until Lucia was acquired by the land company, the post office became once again Branson and remains to this day. The railroad was building toward Branson in 1906, steamed through town. The business is up the hill, west of here, several blocks. We're an inconvenient distance from the railroad and depot. The hotel, motel, and mercantile establishments began moving east to the current main and commercial streets. At least one, Solinger's Saloon and Boarding House, physically moved down the hill to the corner of Main and Sycamore Streets. If you exit the hotel from the lobby, look across the street to a purple building, a beach store. That is Branson's oldest commercial structure remaining. How's it rolling down the hill? We do not know. Branson grew and prospered. The Bank of Branson was established in 1905, the Branson Echo newspaper, the commercial hotel. Which brings us to 1912. On April 1, the city of Branson, with less than 1,000 residents, was incorporated. On August 29, preparations for launching the commercial hotel Lynn include lighting a fire to heat the water. The sparks from that were carried on a strong wind and started a fire which engulfed most of the commercial structures on Main and commercial streets. These important structures, three important structures, are unharmed. The bank, the saloon, and the depot. Several other stone buildings also survived. One of the new buildings, built in 1913, houses the Branson Centennial Museum, of which my wife and Jean are curators, just had a couple of blocks in front of me. Cedar trees were lumbered and milled for pencils, hardwoods for wheel spokes, and railroad ties, much of the industry in early Branson. Missouri's first electrical power dam, Ozark Beach Dam, also known as Power Site, was constructed on the White River a few miles downriver from Branson. The closing of the dam in 1912 created the 22-mile Lake Taneycomo, Taney County, Missouri. Following this, Bull Shoals Dam in 1951, Table Rock Dam in 1958, and Beaver Dam in 1965. So that was a few notes I'm offering you about Branson, and if you come to the museum, you can learn a whole lot more. Thank you very much.
Jim and his wife Jean, as well as myself, and probably 95% of the folks you've met in Branson that are locals, were not born and raised here. Many folks here are transplants, but we've come here, we've fallen in love with the place. place, and we've stayed. But next up, our speaker, John Fullerton, is a 7th-generation Branson native. So he is a true Branson local and a native, and his family has been for 7 generations. He's also an award-winning tour guide, a author, and a historical expert on the early days of tourism in Branson, and one of the nicest guys you'll meet anyway. John?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here on this stage with you. My family has lived through literally everything that has brought us up to this day. And I want to take you back to the late 1800s first, as we'll quickly move forward through this. Several miles west of Branson, over here in Stone County, there was a big old hole in the ground. And a lot of you may know, and you may not know, that Missouri is kind of billed as the cave state. There are 6,000 plus caves in the state of Missouri, and it just so happens that the 3rd largest cave in North America is located out here west of us, and Silver Dollar City today sits on top of that cave. Well, the cave was open to the public well into the 1890s. There had been a mining operation that went on for some time, and trying to figure out how to get people into this hole in the ground. They did it with the best of means that they could. In those early years, you were harnessed and lowered down into the cave on ropes with a lantern in one hand and praying that you were going to touch ground when you reached the bottom. Things continued to go forward. There was rumors running wild. Mr. Jim talked about the railroad. There was rumors running wild in the 1890s about the development of this railroad, and a lot of this land along our river, especially up this Roark Valley here to our northwest, it was all free government land for homesteading. Grab a 160-acre homestead, file your claim, you had no taxes to worry about for 5 years as long as you promised to build a home on your land. Well, this railroad rumor is what really got a lot of settlers. And folks, these were folks from all the way in the East Coast, Maine, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, all those states all of a sudden showed up right here grabbing this free land that they'd heard about. And along about 1896, 1897, in comes this young man from 60 miles north of us. He was a native of New York, by the way, and he was pastoring a small church up here in Pierce City, Missouri. This gentleman was not in the best of health. He was, even in his younger years at that time, having issues with things like tuberculosis and lung problems. And he's coming down here with the advice of his doctor to try and improve his breathing condition. Well, he gets down here on the county line and meets one of these early homesteaders, the Ross family, which had came from Indiana. They welcomed him in with open arms, and next thing you know, he's fell in love with their beautiful farm property, because they're up on a tall mountain ridge right on the county line up here, and on that tall ridge you could see south into Arkansas at a distance of nearly 65 miles. That gentleman, Harold Bell Wright, he shows up and comes back literally every year, 1899, 1900, 1902, 3, 4, 1905. He camps in this wonderful little tent that he has constructed, and he's in the Ross family cornfield of all things, soaking in this view, and decides to write a novel about these new settlers that he has become acquainted with on his visits. Well, friends, that novel was published in 1907. It's called The Shepherd of the Hills. Friends, I call it a historical novel. The book is honestly 75% truth, and that's what opened the door to getting all these visitors to come down here and see us. The vivid things that are stated in this novel, they're so on par, so many truthful evidence, that is shown. The visitors simply had to come down here and see in person what they had read in the pages of The Shepherd of the Hills. Well, guys, the book exploded. Next thing you know, it's a million seller. That had never happened to an American author at that time. By the way, Harold Bell Wright would become a very celebrated author, one of the best. The man would have a career that would span 40 years, and in that amount of time, he wrote 19 novels during that time. And Shepherd of the Hills, the novel, is still mandatory reading in a lot of our Missouri schools and others throughout the Midwest to this day. So here we now have a novel. We've now got a way for folks to get here. We've got the railroad right here beside us to get them all in and out of here. And out there where the book and everything took place, the setting for it on this Ross family farm, it explodes and becomes an actual mecca on its own. In 1914, the property was opened up just to allow folks a place to eat. So dinners were prepared in the kitchen of a 16 by 20 log cabin. And in just the first 2 months of operations and operating dinners and whatnot, 800 people showed up. Where did they put them? They had to set up very quickly outside dining in the backyard of the structure to make it all work. That type of visitorship continued. We were basically a summer destination. We were June, July, August, maybe into early September. That was about it. And all of a sudden, these characters that had been written into this Shepherd of the Hills novel all found ways to capitalize off of it. Many of them did that the rest of their lives. Fast forward into the decade of the 1920s, and the railroad has continued to bring all these folks in here, but float fishing took off, and that really hit us in the decade of the 1930s. Just 8 miles downstream was the Power Site Dam, and it's one of the first hydropower dams in the state of Missouri, creates our Lake Taneycomo, as Mr. Jim told you, and we were one of the float fishing capitals leading well into the early 1950s, but because of the completion of Table Rock Dam upstream by 1958, the entire float fishing industry, it just plumb died. Well, by the time Table Rock Dam was complete in 1958, my great-grandfather, Mr. Earl Allen, and his son-in-law, my Uncle Bob, they were talking one evening. You know, here we've had all these fans for years, fans of the Shepherd of the Hills novel, coming in here to see all this, you know. Now we have a new dam, and this new Table Rock Lake out here that's now being created, and you know, by golly, there's nothing for folks to do at nighttime. What can we come up with? My great-grandpa Earl says, boys, I think we should start us a show. And that's where the idea for live concerts and performances all got underway. And that band was known in those days as the Ball Knobber Hillbilly Band, and the Ball Knobbers, descendants of that family, through my great-grandfather and my uncle, are still carrying that tradition today. So now we've got sort of a music mecca starting to take shape and mold into this neighborhood. By the 1970s, we had actually 5 theaters, and they were all basically family shows, although out of those 5, one was actually a nationally known touring act, the Foggy River Boys, which was kind of a branch off of the old Jordanaires quartet that once backed up folks like Elvis Presley, among others. And then in 1983, we ended up seeing a wonderful Nashville talent, famous Roy Clark from Hee Haw. Met with a local developer and building a theater out here on Highway 76, and by that time there was maybe some 12 theaters, if even that, along a 4-mile section of Highway 76 out here. But having Roy Clark in town really allowed us to climb the ladder even further, because Roy Clark was bringing many of the Hee Haw acts and Nashville talent, and they would all rotate 3 and 5 day and 7-night performances. And next thing you know, the mid-80s has hit us, and we've got quite a few more theaters, and it just kept on trickling forward from there. And lo and behold, we would soon become the live country music capital of the world at that point. And that's just a little thumbnail sketch for you how a bunch of this all evolved. Again, just remember, a book, the railroad, and the dam downstream is really what launched our beginnings of getting all the visitors over here to come see us. Thank you for letting me visit with you today. Sure do appreciate it.
So you've heard about a book. The next big event in Branson's history happened in December of 1991. When we found national fame on 60 Minutes. It was the country's #1 must-watch television news show every Sunday night. And that was back before the internet. That was back before there were 159 channels on your television. There was usually 3, 4, or 5. So it had lots and lots of viewership. If you enjoy an eyewitness account of history, you're sure to enjoy our next speaker. Steve Willoughby had a front row seat to Branson boom. He was the radio personality with his co-host Janet with the #1 morning drive show. It was the show that everyone listened to. It was the show that everyone wanted to be on. If they had a new business or a new show or a new theater coming to the Branson area. So Steve met them all, talked with them all, and as a member of the media and an entrepreneur himself, I think you'll get a unique perspective of what Branson was like during our boom years. Steve?
Thank you, Ian. Good morning. How are you? Thanks for being here, and thanks for caring about Branson and bringing people to Branson. I want to take you back to 1969. I know I'm talking about the 80s. Bear with me for just a second. I was a 5-year-old boy. And this time, we turned right out of our driveway. We never turned right out of our driveway. We always went left. Where were we going? Well, we were going to Silver Dollar City. It was just me, my mom, and my grandpa. I didn't see my grandpa very excited very often. He was a little excited on this day, and so was my mom. Still didn't know what was going on. We were standing there on the town square at Silver Dollar City. Didn't know what was happening, and then magically, there was a commotion to my left. And magically, the people that I saw on my television screen almost nightly walked out. It was the Beverly Hillbillies. Now, I enjoyed watching the Beverly Hillbillies, but even at the age of 5, it was very amazing to me, the reaction from the crowd. And I spent a career watching those reactions for the crowd. You fast forward into the 80s, that parade of people walking off of their television sets onto 76 Country Boulevard continued. We talked about Roy Clark. But soon it was people like Bobby Vinton after 60 Minutes. It was people like Charlie Pride. They all came here to perform. And as Ann talked about, Janet and I had the opportunity to sit down and talk with those folks. And I don't know about being the #1 show. We were just blessed to be there. And we were blessed to talk to them. And at first I would talk to them off the air. And I would tell them, I've got 3 pieces of advice for you. First of all, when you go to the grocery store, be nice to the locals, because they're kind of used to seeing national stars like you. Second of all, always give them your best. And third, remember the people, the locals that really got this place started. And they did that. Ann talked about 60 Minutes being here. I remember having a Christmas party on that Sunday night from the radio station. And we all gathered around the television. We had to be there on time at that point, because if you weren't there when it was on television, you didn't get to see it. I don't know if you remember those days, but it was a little different back then. And to see our hometown, to see the Branson Cafe, to see Presley's, to see all of those just explode on our television set was pretty cool. Now, I have no idea if these next stories are true, but they're good enough to tell you about on this stage. The next day, it is told, or it was told to me, after 60 Minutes aired, a lot of realtors in town got a call. They would say, hey, that land that we had for this price, let's move it to this price. There was also a call, we won't mention names, but someone had a housekeeper, and maybe someone was featured on 60 Minutes talking about the money that they were making. And supposedly the housekeeper called the next day and said, I'm sorry, I can't make it in. My husband says if you make that much money, I need more money to come in and clean your house. So those were some of the things that happened when 60 Minutes aired. But more people started to come. And these people stayed here. They lived here. Now, you take a local of 7 generations, it's tough to earn that local status as it should be. We had a lot of people. The Lynnons, what Dan Lennon and those folks brought to this area. You talk about, as I mentioned, Charlie Pride, Bobby Vinton came down, and all of a sudden it was a different market. Now, I also told those people, remember who got it started, so I should take my own advice. They came down here because of special people. People like Steve and Gary Presley, who had a family show. Did you see Presley's Country Jubilee when you went down 76? That's there today because, yes, it was a family business, but they ran it like a business. But it was also the mindset. Pete and Jack Hershey and what happened in Silver Dollar City and the alums of Silver Dollar City and what they've done to serve this area. It was a mindset that said we've got to expand this Memorial Day to Labor Day schedule. What can we do? And a number of people got in an airplane and they went to West Virginia and they saw a light display. And I remember interviewing Pete Hershey when they got back. And Pete Hershey said, I don't want to be rude, but we can do it better. And they did. And Ann continues that today. This is a special place because it's special people. It's people that, when they had to launch the showboat Branson Bell, they wanted to take care of Table Rock Lake. So they got 2 tons of bananas to launch that and have it slide down into Table Rock Lake to protect the fish. Special people, special folks come to visit. And you know what I would say is the markets you represent, they also have special people, and they have special people wanting to come and visit them. It's such a great opportunity you have to really have an impact on those lives. We mentioned Steve Presley. A couple things I want to say about Steve Presley is, first of all, he was an ambassador, still is. But the big stars would come to town, they would get a call from Steve Presley. And Steve Presley would show them around town and help them to kind of learn as much as they could the ins and outs. Got a call from Steve Presley one day. And he said, I've got somebody that needs to be on the show. And I said, sure, Steve, who is it? Because he's bringing an amazing attraction coming to town. A little behind the scenes, there's been a few people that were going to bring an amazing attraction to town that maybe fell a little bit short of that goal. We've all fallen short of goals, right? Who am I to talk about being short? But anyway, back to Steve Presley. It was John Jocelyn. And John, he came into the studio and he started unrolling these maps and he started talking about what they were going to do on the famous corner in Branson. And they talked about the Titanic Museum attraction. And all of those things that John talked about came true. And then I met his wife and partner, Mary Kellogg. If you haven't had that opportunity, I would encourage you to do that. Mary Kellogg was the first person I talked to, and afterwards I said, I'm starstruck with everything that you have done. But they've continued to add and continue to add great value. Thanks for caring about Branson, Missouri, and please bring more folks to see us. Thank you.
To tell you, I'm always proud of Branson, but when I hear these folks talk with the passion that they talk about, I think you really get a feel for what makes Branson special. You know, there's a group that got together recently to try to identify our legacy, and they came up with 2 words that I think really captures our community, and they were hope and hospitality. People come here for hope and to experience our hospitality, and it's really what's carried us through for many, many years. When folks ask me about how's Branson been, I came to Branson incidentally in '86, so I saw the pre and post boom and lived through some of the same experiences that Steve did. But I always, when I talk about what's happened since, it's a continuous evolution. It's been a change, as we talked about this morning, your sponsor talked about, that's been good for this community, and it's because of the people and the way we've tried to work together, been grateful for our good fortune, our blessings, however you want to describe that, but we stay pretty humble because we know that this doesn't just happen anywhere in the country. It happened in Branson because of perhaps our hope, our hospitality, some hard work, could be another H word added on to that, but it's really, it's been a accumulation of efforts by a number of really, really good people as we've tried to maximize our good fortune and leverage our assets for the best for the community and for our visitors. As an example, after 9/11, we were a safe place, an alternative to international travel. As a Midwest destination, we offer a good value when the economy isn't so stable. We had outdoors and the beautiful Ozarks to offer during COVID when folks needed fresh air and a little social distancing. So we've always tried to pull our assets and make that work. Our last speaker this morning is Lynn, Communications Director for the Branson Lakes Area CVB, and she's going to wrap up our Branson story for you with the latest information and what has come to fruition today because of this success story, that overnight success story that took a very long time. Lynn?
People always ask me what's new in Branson, and now I'm charged with talking about 30 years of what's new in about 8 minutes. I printed it out. It was 27 pages, single space. I whittled it down to 9, and I wanted to share with you some of the things that might inspire a spark in your community or in your business or in your planning with what we have to offer just here in Branson. Throughout the 1990s, Branson saw not only tremendous growth in the number of theaters, but the number of hotels, motels, bed and breakfast, lakeside resorts, restaurants, attractions, shopping malls, condos, and housing developments, and all the service businesses that go along with that grew proportionally as well. Big Cedar Lodge, Point Royale, Thousand Hills, Holiday Hills, and Top of the Rock added resort and golf amenities in the area. The renowned Branson Creek Golf Course opened and received top honors by industry publications such as Golf Week and Golf Digest, including being ranked in the top 100 courses in the nation, a first for our area. The city of Branson and Taney County undertook major infrastructure projects in the 1990s to accommodate the influx of our new visitors and residents. Over that decade, the city invested more than $40 million in road improvements, making it easier to get around town. Internally, we called these color-coded routes and the educational efforts that went along with it our Roads Scholar Program. So I decided to come forward a little bit to 2012, which was Branson's centennial year. And while we celebrated 100 years of heritage, hospitality, and harmony, an EF2 leap day tornado tore through Branson, but we quickly rebounded. Had we ever been told that we would actually end up with tax revenue increase of 3% that year, no one would have believed it. But we celebrated 75 years of entertaining the world. We lost our beloved Andy Williams. He was the first non-country entertainer to open up a theater in Branson. He died in September of 2012. We had the Bald Knobbers donate their instruments and hold a great big celebratory event at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. A lot was happening that 100th year. In 2013, Southwest announced service to Branson. Oh my gosh, that means we are a destination. And we did have flights in and out with service to Dallas, Houston, and Chicago until they left in 2015. And you know, Southwest has always had a return to the markets that they have been to over their 50 years of service. So we're hoping that we're one of the four that they'll come back to in the not too distant future. We had The Price is Right live in 2013. Daniel O'Donnell announced, the wonderful Irish tenor, that he would only perform in Branson in the United States. In 2014, we had the Harlem Globetrotters join Hersham Family Entertainment, and they came and entertained out at Silver Dollar City year after year. We were named the #2 best value by Trivago in 2015 for entertaining folks and lodging in Branson. In 2016, Fritz's Adventure is a dynamic family attraction. You take some shipping containers, you put in some zip lines, and you bring in an old airplane for the children to crawl around in, and you've got a multi-million-dollar adventure of a dynamic family attraction that brings excitement and challenges and the world around you that anywhere else would be prohibited or discouraged. Fritz's Adventure is opening up their second establishment down in Frisco, Texas next year. The Bright Lights of Branson in 2016 put the spotlight on a Hallmark card entertainer with Maxine's Christmas Carol opening on the stage at the Andy Williams Theater. 10,000-acre Dogwood Canyon Nature Park, who advocate for education, preservation, and conservation, proudly announced that they would build a working grist mill, a restaurant, and a general store. What a beautiful part of the world they show off on the Arkansas-Missouri line. The 50th anniversary of the Presleys in 2017, they built the first music theater on 76. In June, it opened 1967. They built it with a flat floor, just in case they had to turn it into a boat showroom. The Runaway Mountain Coaster was the first thrill ride that uses natural topography in the area for a user-controlled trip few will ever forget. Very popular in Europe, the very first carts are pulled to the top via a chain similar to roller coasters. At the top of the mountain, the carts are released to travel down the hill, winding in and out and around for a very unique experience. Raiding the Country Vault opened in Branson in 2017, followed by Raiding the Rock Vault, which came from Las Vegas. Bigfoot on the Strip is the 5th attraction investment in Branson for the owners of the Branson Zipline Canopy Tours. They had a $10 million attraction, with 2 of the rides being extreme rides for serious thrill seekers, while the 3rd is a calmer ride offering more of an Ozarks viewing experience. We opened the History of Fishing Museum, which has the largest collection of antique fishing lures, rods and reels, boats, motors, entirely collected by one man and his wife. Branson Forward is a dream, bigger, brighter, and more amazing, that Branson visitors will experience with spacious walkways, landscaping, park benches, interesting landmarks, and amazing spaces for visitors to explore and enjoy. The city will have invested more than $100 million to transform 5 miles of Highway 76 when this is completed. In 2019, we added even more encores to the stages in Branson, with world-renowned illusionist Rick Thomas presenting his new show, Mansion of Dreams. It is an incredible, epic, best word to describe Mansion of Dreams. There's no show like it in the world, and it's right here in Branson, Missouri. In 2020, Mystic River Falls at Silver Dollar City opened as the tallest raft ride in the Western Hemisphere. You have got to get a little wet in the splashdown, but it was a great addition to Silver Dollar City's 60th year history. Payne's Valley Golf Course at Big Cedar Lodge pays tribute to Ozarks native and World Golf Hall of Famer Payne Stewart. He was born in Springfield. The very first public access golf course is designed by Tiger Woods design firm. Tiger has been here many times, and Payne's Valley, you can't get a tee time until November. Aquarium at the Boardwalk brought the ocean to the Midwest, with a jellyfish infinity room, underwater tunnels with a mermaid palace, and all the twists and turns of a submarine adventure. This opened in 2020. Guy Fieri's restaurant joined us in 2020. Wonderworks, the upside-down adventure on Highway 76, opened in 2020. Beyond the Lens, an exciting techno-tainment trip through pop culture, opened in 2020. Shepherd of the Hills Adventure Park was voted the #1 aerial adventure park by readers of USA Today 3 times over the past 3 years. And in 2021, Silver Dollar City took the crown for the #1 amusement park in all the land, is named by the 10 best USA Today Reader's Choice Awards. We have a world of award-winning golf courses now, connected to the greatest names in golf: Fazio, Nicklaus, Palmer, Corin Crenshaw, and Tiger Woods. You can find mountain and valley layouts with a variety of experiences suited for every pride level, and we're home to some of the best golf in the Midwest. In 2023, Queen Esther opened at Sight and Sound Theater. Esther's ordinary life changed forever when she was taken through the palace doors, entering a new world of royalty and risk. Those Bible dramas on stage at Sight and Sound Theater are wonderful, and everyone should enjoy. We welcome PBR, professional bull riding, to the Ozarks this fall. We have a new arena called Thunder Ridge. Johnny Morris and Bass Pro Shops have set up a team-sanctioned event that will debut this month. And the accolades that we've achieved just over the past year, in 2023, TripAdvisor named us the best of the best, most 25 popular tourist attractions in the U.S. We have been on that list for 11 years. And TripAdvisor has also named Branson number 3 for the top trending destinations in America. Silver Dollar City was voted 5 years in a row as the #1 best holiday theme park. And the Shepherd of the Hills continues to win their Aerial Adventure Park Award even this year. Branson is listed in the 10 best lake towns to call home in North America by Newsweek. And of the 10 golf courses in Branson, 8 have received national awards or accolades, and the newest is the only public golf course in America designed by the greatest golfer of all time. I hope you'll have a chance to enjoy and a chance to send your attendees and welcome folks here that would love to bring their families and stay a little longer. Extend that stay in your destination with some of these ideas as well. And we appreciate you all bringing your business to Branson. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Sam and I were talking just a few minutes before we started this morning, and she said many of you had not been to Branson before, and that you've had a phenomenal time, and you may have previously said, why are we doing this meeting in Branson, and why are we going to Branson? Well, we can always take our message to outside of this area, but the best way for us to share what Branson is of course to get people here. So we do appreciate you very much for coming. Hopefully you got a little bit of an insight into how Branson got to be what Branson is today. And we have a few minutes if there's anyone that has a specific question about anything you've heard or other topics in the history of Branson. Or Branson today, for that matter. We've got several experts in many areas up here. If we can entertain any questions, we'd be happy to. Great. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Were there any Civil War battles in Branson?
Her question was, were there any Civil War battles in Branson?
No, ma'am. The Civil War activity was mostly in the eastern part of the county. Branson was not much at that time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, thank you so much for your attention. I hope you can feel the hope and hospitality that we try to foster here in Branson, Missouri, and we've tried to present to you this morning with our panel. Thank you very much.